Today we are going down the rabbit hole of Reptile Tik Tok. Fair warning, if you keep your geckos in a rack system and small tubs, fair warning, you should probably just leave now because we've got a lot to say about it. And some of these videos might be a little bit disturbing to some more sensitive viewers, so just a little bit of a heads up and a warning. But let's get right into it. The very first video that caught my eye here. The gecko's not dead, by the way. So let's just pause this real quick. I actually already reacted to this specific TikTok on our TikTok, but I wanted to pull it up on YouTube as well. This is just absolutely a shame. This person is keeping their leopard gecko in a rack system. The rack system looks like it's only a few inches deep. The gecko is on its back, which I don't know about you, but I've never seen a leopard gecko just chilling on its back. It's disturbing. And then if you look a little bit closer in the video as well, it almost looks like there's blood smears from its toes. Like maybe its toes are bleeding. It might be feces. I'm not sure. But this video is just absolutely devastating to see how they're keeping their leopard geckos. Completely empty rack at that. There's no water, there's no food, there's no substrate, there's no UVB. They might have some sort of heat mat in it or the heat strips, but I mean, this is just so bad. It breaks my heart to see a gecko being housed like this. So then they proceed to pick it up and pretend that the gecko's just all good and great, which I don't know how many bins they have in the background, but if you scroll through their other videos, it looks like, yeah, see here, they've got a lot of bins. It's not just a couple. They're all labeled, which indicates to me that these geckos live in these bins and they're not just temporary holding bins for whatever reason. And what's more crazy to me is that people just leave these videos out there. I mean, of course it gets a lot of views, I'm sure, and a lot of engagement because of the comments and all the hate that they're getting, but I don't know if I would trade that for views. I mean, I know I wouldn't. It's sickening. It's sickening what people do for views, and even if they do keep their reptiles like this, posting it to TikTok and showing people just blows my mind. The excuse is it's breeding. It was bleeding. Looked like it was bleeding, and they responded it's breeding. I don't know what they were saying there, but if they're saying that breeding is the excuse to keep them like this, absolutely not. And here's the deal. I'll move on here after this little rant, but I don't care if you're a breeder. I don't care if you have 10 million followers. And I don't care who told you it was okay to keep your geckos like this. If you keep your geckos in a rack system like this video, or if you keep them in those tiny 8-quart bins, you are doing an absolute disservice to that animal. There's no way around it. That is a fact. You are doing a disservice to that animal by keeping them in that rack system. And anyone who wants to, debate this topic in the comments, you can use any excuse that you would like to use, but all I'm going to hear is one of three things. You're going to use a rack system for either cost saving, to save space, or to profit. And none of those three will help that gecko or benefit that gecko in any way. It only benefits you, and that's the problem. Disgusting video. I almost don't want to bring up another video right at. I feel bad for whoever has to follow that one up. Alright, so now we have two bearded dragons that look to be in a 40-gallon tank. I can't even tell. It might not. It might be a 20 for all I know. Looks like they're on reptile carpet and newspaper. This is terrible. And I'm not quite sure what they're saying, but in any case, absolute horrible setup. I don't know if that's a water dish or a food dish, but it doesn't look like there's any enrichment in there. I do see a wire coming down. I don't know if that's a probe for a basking light. I'm not quite sure what that is. Maybe it's just the electrical that's running from the basking light, but if the basking light is up top here, they have nothing to bask on other than just the ground. Let's see if they get to... Okay, there's the full enclosure. No, this is awful. I don't know why people keep their reptiles like this. This is 2 bearded dragons. This isn't even good for one. This isn't even a good setup for a leopard gecko, let alone a bearded dragon that gets, 5 times the size. They have what appears to be one basking light. I can't tell if there's a UVB. That might be a UVB. Nope, that's just the corner of the tank. If they do have a UVB, it's probably a coil by the looks of it. I see another dome up there. Oh, now they're breeding bearded dragons. That's great. Definitely should be breeding bearded dragons when their enclosures look like that. It's fantastic.
One of the really cool things about keeping a leopard gecko is that you can actually train them to...
What's really cool about keeping a leopard gecko is not putting it in racks. Look how deep that dish is. It is like 1.5 inches. Are you kidding me? And there's just rack upon rack upon rack upon rack. This leopard gecko can't even turn around in the enclosure. I will say at least they have a food dish and what looks to be some sort of humid hide back here and some water. But where in the hell is that gecko supposed to move? That is very unfortunate. I thought we were going to see a lot more bearded dragons, but it looks like leopard geckos are really what's popular to put in racks now. And look, at the end of the day, the leopard gecko can look healthy, but that doesn't mean that it has a good quality of life. And I find it kind of funny as well. Again, you have all of these comments that people are calling them out. They need to be in a minimum of a 40-gallon. Another really cool thing is making really cool spacious enclosures. I don't know if they responded. It doesn't look like they actually responded to any of these because I'm sure that they expected these kind of comments. But yeah, I guess they just don't care. So that's the frustrating part, is a lot of people that are using these rack systems, they just don't care. They don't care what you think. They don't care what anyone else thinks. The only thing that they care about at the end of the day is making a profit.
Yesterday, Nicole and I Petco on East Franklin Street in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and saw this leopard gecko on display. Not only...
Okay, just pointing out real quick, for anyone that might have missed that, this person, Be Wild Reptile Rescue, is not the owner of this gecko. Well, they may be now, I don't know, but they are filming a video from a chain pet store.
Is it extremely emaciated and near death? It's...
Near death? That thing is close to death as it can get without being dead.
Highly suspicious for something called cryptosporidium or sticktail disease. This is a parasite that is very contagious and often deadly, and it's somewhat common in leopard geckos that originate from mass breeding facilities. When we tried to address our concerns with the manager and let them know about cryptosporidium, I'm not joking when I say they rolled their eyes and said they'd seen worse.
And I believe that 100%. Here's the thing. When you go to a chain pet store, we're not mentioning names, not this one specifically, but really any chain pet store, everything comes from corporate, right? The employees can only do so much, and the employees are going to do exactly what they are trained to do. Now, every now and then you might get an employee at, one of these stores that know a little bit more and provide a little bit more care to the animals because they know better. But aside from that, I mean, this is the only way that we can fight this is to just stop buying them. Don't buy a sick animal from these chain stores because they're going to immediately replace them and give them more support to just keep bringing them in. So the only way that we can counteract this is just to stop buying from chain pet stores so stuff like this stops happening. And for an example like this, this leopard gecko might have already been sick before they brought it into the chain store. But this gecko should have been at the vet probably, 3 months ago, and it's just been sitting there, I'm sure. And ultimately, I really think that it comes down to some sort of disassociation of reptiles being animals. I think in the general public's eye, like if anybody from the general public were to come in here and see this leopard gecko specifically, I would hope they'd be like, holy cow, this is a sick animal, and feel some sort of compassion for it. However, in a lot of cases, people don't associate reptiles as animals. It's like, they kind of think of them, it might be easier to explain, as like a fish, a goldfish, for example. You get a goldfish from the fair, your kid brings it home, it dies, whoops, flush it down the toilet. I feel like a lot of people have the same concept or the same logic when it comes to reptiles, and it's really sad. I mean, it's not good for the fish either. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to point out, how people think of reptiles, and it's unfortunate to say the least.
They did indicate that they'd made a vet appointment for this animal, but they refused to take it off
did.
display or address how dangerous it is to be housing it with other animals when it's likely contagious. People have been trying to change Petco for years, and I don't think we're going to be the ones to make the difference.
Yeah, the only difference we can make is stop buying them, and the problem is that, just the average person that walks into these stores, they don't have the background information. They don't know where these animals come from. As far as they know, all of these animals are just perfectly healthy, and the care provided is exactly what they need, which is why people end up buying, a bunch of stuff that, like these leopard gecko kits or crested gecko kits or bearded dragon kits, that are just very poor marketing. It's really not their fault, aside from not doing enough research before buying the animal. But yeah, the only thing we can do is stop buying them.
But I do think this location should stop selling live animals.
I think all chain pet stores should stop selling all animals. I think it should be absolutely illegal to sell any animals, reptiles, or anything of the sort in commercial chain stores like this.
They've shown definitively that they cannot do it responsibly.
Or at the very least, they should have some sort of mandated inspection from the Department of Agriculture.
And if you can't treat your animals humanely, you shouldn't be selling them. There is nothing they can say that makes this okay or excusable. They chose to put this animal on display in front of their customers. That means they either don't care or they don't recognize what terrible condition this animal is in.
Both.
And in either case, they shouldn't be in charge of its care. We've seen a lot of terrible things doing rescue work, but this is really one of the most despicable.
And let me just say that people who actually do rescue work, I mean, hats off to them. It's not an easy job. It's you see all these people on Facebook like, hey, we rescued this, rescued that. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that legitimately take in rescues, legitimately sick animals, or animals that have been abandoned, animals that need to go to the vet. It's a very disheartening job. It's a job that can just make you lose faith in humanity, so hats off to them.
Things I've ever seen, and it comes from people that are supposed to be animal experts. The people in charge of this leopard gecko are the same ones that are advising new reptile owners on how to care for their pets. And if you're not a reptile lover...
See, that's the problem. We don't necessarily want to blame the people that are working at that specific store, because what can they do? There's only so much that they can do. But, the store needs to train their employees to give proper information, because if somebody comes in and buys a leopard gecko that was housed with this one, and it could carry a disease, I mean, you're setting them up for failure right off the bat. Not to mention, they're going to buy the reptile carpet. They might end up buying a heat rock. They might end up buying the red lights. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and the pet store employee is only going to know as much as they're being told, unless, of course, they have been part of the reptile hobby and far in advance of having that job. But in most cases, I wouldn't expect that. And I would imagine that they're going to provide the same care that's probably provided by the chain corporate.
Try to at least realize that this leopard gecko feels pain in the same way that a cat or a dog does, and just try to imagine the public's reaction if a store had a dying, emaciated puppy for sale.
Yeah, and that's just getting back to what I was saying before, is that people don't associate reptiles as animals.
I would like to thank the Petco employees from other locations that saw our Facebook post and reached out and let us know they were going to check on the gecko and make sure the situation was addressed. We do realize there's lots of great Petco and PetSmart employees that really care about the animals, and that not every store is like this one. But this one sucks. So if you're as angry as we are, I want you to call and email Petco and let them know that you want this location, the Petco on East Franklin Street in Chapel Hill, to stop selling live animals. Yesterday.
Yeah, I don't think any of them should sell live animals. Okay, there's really nothing wrong with this video. Just right off the top, I just absolutely love shinglebacks. They are an amazing looking skink. I dream of having a shingleback one day. I need one. I need one.
Speaking from experience, I can tell you it is not a bearded dragon. You're looking at footage of iguanas here, but it's the same.
We have Leafy Street here. I will say, this guy, Leafy Street, he knows how to retain someone's attention. His videos are really, really good. They're done really well. So if you're looking into getting into reptile videos, take a look at Leafy Street. He's really good when he does his shorts. He really knows how to captivate people's attention. Alright, here we go. I bought a leopard gecko. It looked like, I'm going to turn the volume off here. Immediately, that to-go box looked like it came from a chain store that we probably all know. And, you know, this is a prime example of what we were talking about before. This person bought a leopard gecko from a chain store, and I'm not sure if, I don't know if they got a kit, but they're going to set it up much like the pet store has them set up. Probably got the advice on the setup from the pet store, so kind of is what it is. Hopefully there's enough people that told them what they could do better, and maybe they've upgraded the enclosure since then. But we've got reptile carpet. These dials here for, I don't know if that's a thermometer or a hygrometer, but this right here, you need to go digital. These things, they're never accurate. So we have reptile carpet. We've got a circular cork round. We've got a water bowl, and that's the water bowl, that's the food bowl. And then we have the leopard gecko. Yeah, I mean, what can you do? First off, this tank here is not a front opening tank. If you have a reptile, it should be front opening so you're not reaching down on top of them. It's gonna stress them out. Looks like this tank was probably made for aquatics, or it's one of those ones that have like the grate top on it that are also not very good. But super small tank, got the reptile carpet in there. The dishes are fine, the wood's fine, but need to do something about this dial. Again, I don't know if that's heat or hygrometer. And I'm waiting to see if we put in a UVB or a basking light. Okay, not gonna show. So we're just gonna assume that they have proper lighting. I hate to call somebody out for it that doesn't know any better, but just please do your research before you buy an animal. And it's quite surprising actually that we haven't seen any really bad crested gecko enclosures yet. I'm sure we will get to some, but it's surprising that we haven't seen any yet. Here we go with another
worms. I saw the leopard geckos.
Another chain store.
All of them had stuck shed, and not just on their tail tips or toes, but on entire
Oh man. So I think we all know that you should not keep this many leopard geckos in an enclosure, let alone one the size of, you know, whatever it is that the chain store has them in. The humidity is way off. You can see all of them with stuck shed. It's not just shedding. You can actually see it stuck to its back. And here's a little bit of a fun fact that it doesn't always come down to the enclosure being too dry. If the enclosure is too wet, it can also affect shedding for the gecko, whether it be a leopard gecko or a crested gecko or a chihuahua, lychee, gargoyle, whatever the case is. Usually most people only think about being too dry, but too humid will also do it.
Of their bodies. If not removed, stuck shed can lead to necrotic tail tips, toes, and even limbs.
It's true.
It can cause eye infection and even blindness.
Can
the
do
way
that as well.
Leopard geckos are kept in stores, communally, and
Looks
with
like they have
low
them in
humidity,
40s.
on calcium sand, under
Or
bright
50s,
lights,
maybe.
and with limited hides, it's not only bad advertising for future pet owners, it's also neglectful to the animals.
All
and
of
their care.
them. I mean, come
want
on.
to say I don't blame the individual pet store employees, and neither should you, because they're not paid very well.
Well, somebody's got to say something at some point, right? I mean, we don't blame the pet store employees. I said it before. I don't blame them, but somebody needs to say something. Nobody just walks by this and thinks it's normal.
They're not animal
And maybe they
educated a
have.
lot of times.
I don't know.
They're just there
Maybe they
to
just can't
help
do
in
anything about
corporate's
it.
vision. I know it's probably easy to think, why don't you just buy them all, remove all their stuck shed, and then rehome them? That doesn't do anything because corporate will just send more leopard geckos.
Exactly.
The real way to stop this is to never buy animals from chain or commercial pet stores. Luckily,
Exactly.
leopard geckos are always readily available, at least here in the States, for adoption and rehoming. And you might be thinking, well, they're just lizards, they're disposable.
So, yeah, I mean, she hit right on it perfectly. Exactly what I was saying before. The only way to stop it is to stop buying from them. Alright, so we're not going to... This one has a bunch of music, so we muted it. But I just want to point out... Why can't I pause the video? It's not letting me pause. There we go. If you take a look at their enclosures that they have here, why is it so hard to do this as opposed to putting in a rack system? And that's just what I mean, I don't love that he doesn't have very much in there, but regardless, it is a vertical enclosure. It's given that arboreal gecko baby places to go up and down as opposed to, you know, a really short bin that's long. These are extremely cheap. They stack well. They're cheap. You can buy them right on Amazon, and they work great for baby geckos. If cost is the major driver as to why you're using a rack system, I mean, just buy these. And we kind of have the same thing back here. Ours are a little bit wider than this, but it's really the same difference. And we keep them in there for probably 3 or 4 months or until they get a little bit bigger before we upgrade them to their next enclosure, which for me, usually we typically sell them about the time that they're about ready to jump to the next enclosure, so we don't have to keep as many of those on hand. But nonetheless, this is good for a little baby gecko. And I would imagine that, you know, they're not putting full-grown geckos in here. There have been no truer words spoken. Crested geckos are fun until it's already 10 p.m. on a Wednesday and you haven't washed bowls yet. Oh man, I can relate to this, as I'm sure any crested gecko owner can. Here we've got somebody tearing the shed off of their crested gecko. Don't do this! Do not peel the shed off of your geckos, whether it's a leopard gecko or a crested gecko or any gecko that sheds. They will eat their shed. They naturally shed. Unless it's stuck, you should not be pulling it off of them. Look at that. Now they have shed stuck in their toes and their claws. Don't do this. There's so many videos on TikTok of people tearing the shed off of their animal. Just leave them alone. Let them do it. Don't even handle them when they're shedding. Just leave them to their own devices. They'll take care of it. And if they can't, then you step in and you help them out.
Another hard pill to swallow, but you guys need to hear it anyway, is that your animals owe you nothing. I'm hearing a lot of stories of people rehoming animals because they buy that animal and then realize that that animal wasn't what they expected it to be like. There are a lot of pet influencers on these apps that have pets with very unique personalities, and I think that people see that and think that if they get that same animal...
That is very true, and also very good advice. Just because you see an influencer or somebody on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, Instagram, just because their crested gecko is super handleable, or just because their iguana walks around their kitchen and eats lettuce out of their hand, doesn't mean that if you get one, it's going to do the same thing. It sets, a lot of times it sets unrealistic expectations, which I don't think the influencer or the person making the videos are trying to do, but it just tends to happen quite often.
For types of people you will see at...
We got 4 types of people you will see at a reptile expo. This should be interesting.
For types of people you will see at Reptile Expos Part 1.
That's nice.
You do get a lot of those.
That's nice.
I do quite a few expos, generally during the spring through the summer, and we take a break during the winter, but Yeah, you definitely, and it's super nice. I'm not making fun of anybody, but a lot of people will come up to your table and they'll just point and be like, "That's nice," and walk away. Yeah, it's very nice of them. I just think it's funny.
That's nice. That's nice.
That's nice.
Right, mate. Yeah, not too bad, mate. Red Diamonds. I used to work with them 15, 20 years ago. Yeah.
Get a lot of those.
Black Knight. Pure line. Been there, done that.
They're spot on
here.
here.
Leopard gecko to a cresty. Made a massive hybrid. Best thing.
We get crazy stories, and usually it's just people that want to interact, right, and tell stories and have a conversation, which is totally cool. I love having conversations with people, and I love meeting new people. But a lot of the stories do become pretty far-fetched.
Ever done? Right, mate. Yeah, how you doing? Good. Yeah, I got some really nice stuff. Really nice stuff. So, how long you been here for? When did you set up? Bloody hell, 2 hours to set up. Jesus Christ. Yeah, no, I've been doing well, to be fair, mate. Been a really busy season for me. Looking into getting into some.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I'll drop a like and a follow on this one here, but yeah. Definitely nailed that. That's a good video, funny video. Yeah, so I don't know what kind of lizards these are, but we got super bare enclosures. Wow. You need way more foliage in all of these enclosures. I'm assuming, let's see, yeah, crested geckos. It also says green anole. So I don't know what's in each enclosure, but if it's crested geckos, these are way too bare, especially if you have adults in here. Hopefully it's not adults because they're super small enclosures if they are adults, but need to up your foliage game. So I seen this video actually yesterday during our live stream, but wanted to, I seen it when I was scrolling and wanted to click on it, but check this one out.
Has damaged the top of my... Someone please help me. I've got a heat lamp, but it has damaged the top of my baby crested gecko's enclosure. And it was only on for about 20 minutes. Someone please help me.
So did
I've got a
anybody...
heat lamp, but it has...
Did anybody see what was wrong here?
Baby... Oh, was...
Look at that heat lamp. That's at least probably a 150 watt. And I will say that it's actually a good thing that it melted the enclosure after 20 minutes, because if it didn't, your gecko would be dead. That bulb is way too hot for a crested gecko, and they said it's a baby crested gecko, which I will say, thumbs up to you for providing a decent enclosure for your baby gecko. But this light is crazy, and all the credit to this person, because they are trying. It does appear that they are trying their best here, and they probably took advice from somebody that they need a basking light because their temperatures probably don't remain above 70 degrees. But this is definitely not the right light. But to answer the question of the poster, or of the original poster, a thermostat will help because it'll just keep it off. But once you do get a smaller basking light, you definitely need to hook up a thermostat and put the probe at like the closest point to the basking light that the crested gecko can reach or easily get to. And that'll solve your problem. That's wild though. Good thing. It's a good thing that melted and that you caught it, because otherwise the circumstances would have been much worse. This clearly has to be just a joke. Help me make my new crested gecko enclosure. I got him from Petco, and they're putting it in a cardboard box. That's gotta be a joke.
Found you.
Well, I mean...
Back home.
Completely honest with you, I can't blame it for trying to escape. You have it on newspaper in a tiny little bin that it can barely turn around in. I mean, again, at least you have a food, water, and humid hide, but my gosh. There's no excuse for keeping a leopard gecko like this. And you know what the funny part is that if you asked one of these people, if you bought one of their geckos from them and asked them how to care for it, they would probably give you the best care guide that you could possibly get. But they keep it in a rack. It blows my mind. And I've seen people who keep their geckos in racks have care guide videos where they'll be next to like a giant enclosure and they'll show like how to set it up and how to do this or that. But yet, since they're a breeder, it's okay that they keep their geckos in this tiny little dish. But if you guys like this video and want to see more, we're happy to do more. Drop us a like and subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next one.